I've been asked to speak today about the purpose of museums, and I think that's something we often take for granted, that we have museums and we need museums. But with so much information available now online, people have access to whatever it is they want to know, so I think we need to consider carefully just what it is that we expect of our museums today, what makes them relevant in the information age. Clearly, we've got to move beyond the early 20th century concept of a warehouse full of old, remarkable, untouchable objects. This warehouse idea does very little to inspire people. What museum professionals need to do, what they should be doing, is make their collections and programs work towards the purpose of education. So whether that means having more hands-on exhibits, becoming involved with other community organisations, they should be doing whatever it takes to think about their visitors, to engage people, to educate them. And in that way, they can be instruments of social change. If they have knowledge and understanding of the people who visit, and the people they want to come and visit, they can take this as a starting point for providing exhibitions and services that are relevant to people's lives.
The lecture is about the purpose of museum. The speaker talks about information age and warehouse full of old objects. He also points out inspire people and museum professionals and purpose of education and hands-on exhibits. In the end, the lecture explained how community organizations and instruments of social change affect people's life. I think that's enough. Thank you so much.
Indeed, the library. We've all been to a historic library. We've all enjoyed the smell of a historic library. But what is it and what does it mean? When at UCL Center for Sustainable Heritage, we've recently been asked to assess the environment at another historic library at St. Paul's Cathedral, the Wren Library, an incredible place. And it has such an intensive smell of old books. And we were also asked, for the first time really, I was actually quite taken aback by the brief, we were asked, whatever you do, please preserve the smell. It's so important to our audience. It's so important how people perceive the library. So that was quite an important message in our research. And indeed, smell is an important way of how we communicate with the environment. This piece of research was done by an advertising company, because advertisers are so interested in how we interact with each other and the environment. And we see that the majority of people use sight, obviously, to interact with the environment. But on the second place, we see that smell is also very, very important.
The lecture is about historic library smell and environment. The speaker talked about historic library and the smell of a historic library. He also points out sustainable heritage and assess the environment and the smell of old books and reserve the smell. In the end, the lecture explained how perceive the library and communicate with the environment and interact with each other affect the use, sight, and smell. I think that's enough. Thank you so much.
Well, it's about whether you can achieve a win-win solution, whether you can achieve economic growth which brings wealth in order to cut poverty without damaging biodiversity. And the argument is that if you want to protect biodiversity, you have to focus on that as a goal. But if you do that, you run the risk of hurting the poor, and you also run the risk of inconveniencing or reducing economic growth. And we're used in developed countries, industrialized countries, to seeing this argument, this axis argued about with, let us say, a government wishing to start drilling for oil in place X, which is full of wildlife, and the Wildlife Conservation Societies urging them not to on the grounds that it's a wilderness refuge. We're used to that debate. What I'm saying is that in the developing world there's a third axis, and it's quite a complex one.
The lecture is about economic growth and biodiversity. The speaker talks about win-win solutions and economic growth. He also points out bring wealth, cut poverty, damaging the biodiversity, and protect biodiversity. In the end, the lecture explained how we can run the risk industrialized countries and wildlife conservations affect wilderness refugees. Refuge.
And this illustration often used is the one of the monkeys at the typewriter. Okay, so we have a monkey sitting at a typewriter, and the claim here is basically if you leave chance and time long enough, you will get life, don't worry about it. Yes, it's strange, yes, it's wonderful, but leave enough matter, 600 million years on Earth, and you will have life. So the monkey's sitting at the typewriter, and the chances are eventually he produces the complete works of Shakespeare, so what's the problem? But he doesn't manage to do it in 600 million years. So what I decided to do to run the numbers is instead of saying type the complete works of Shakespeare, I just ran the numbers for how long would it take a monkey typing at 1 keystroke a second to type to be or not to be, that is the question. Right? On average, how long is it going to take my monkey friend at 1 keystroke a second? I don't know how long you think that would be, maybe you could have a guess. Would it be less or more than 600 million years, which is the period life on Earth is supposed to have emerged within? And when I ran the numbers, to be or not to be, that is the question, takes 12.6 trillion years to type just that phrase. And a DNA string, that complexity emerged by chance, undirected, within 600 million years. Again, it's mathematically possible, but it's so incredibly unlikely that it would have, that it tilts me in favor of the Christian story in which God creating life is simply a question of saying, let there be, and there was.
The lecture is about the infinite monkey theorem and evolution. The speaker talks about monkeys and the typewriters. He also points out live chains in time long enough, live matter 600 million years, and complete works of Shakespeare. In the end, the lecture explained how to run the numbers, keystroke a second, pure of light on Earth, and DNA string with complexity emerges by chance. A fact mathematically possible. I think that's enough. Thank you so much.
A wind turbine is a device that will convert wind into mechanical movement, which we can use to power a water pump or electricity generator. Now, the power that a turbine creates is obviously dependent on the wind speed, but it's also dependent obviously on the number of sails, the area of the sails, and the angle that the sails makes to the wind. So if you can imagine if the turbine blades are flat onto the wind is just going to sort of bend it. But if they're at a slight angle, when the wind hits it, it's going to turn the blades. And we can use that for powering things. Now we're going to have a go at making some very, very simple paper windmills, the sort of things that you can make from the bits and pieces lying around at home, and use that to drive a very small generator to power electronic devices.
The lecture is about wind turbine and mechanical movement. The speaker talks about wind turbine and convert wind into mechanical movement. He also points out power water pump, electricity generator, and wind speed. In the end, the lecture explained how number of cells, angle of the cell, and turbine placed with simple paper windmills affect power electronic devices. I think that's enough. Thank you so much.